We're going to do two Parashiyot, Parashat Tetze and Tavo, because I will not be here next week. Parashat Tetze has many mitzvot. If I recall correctly, it has 74 mitzvot. 27 positive, 47 lo ta'aseh. And we have, Baruch Hashem, gone through the mitzvot in the past when we did a series about the Taryag mitzvot. Now we're not going to cover all the mitzvot, and definitely not in one night. It is a very lengthy parasha. There are many inyanim, many ideas, many concepts, many mitzvot. And I'm going to summarize, as I usually do, give an overview, and share with you impressions of the weekly parasha. In this case, two parashiyot. Some of you perhaps may have read books, or may have heard in the radio about how concerned the United States government has been in the past and still is about nuclear weapons. In the past, about the Russians surprising us with a nuclear missile, and now other countries in the world. Many books have been written on how to prepare for this kind of a war, how to build your home, how to survive nuclear war if it ever happens, chas v'shalom. The Torah Kedusha, even though it speaks about many wars, physical wars, it also has in mind a much more dangerous war, and that is a spiritual war, Milchemet HaYetzer. The Milchemet HaYetzer is the war that we wage every single day. It is a more difficult war, a more dangerous war, because it concerns our neshama. It concerns a battle for our soul. The Yetzer Hara is always after our neshama. This is a much more difficult war, because it is a constant war. The Yetzer Hara is always trying to defeat us, and many of us will have ups and downs because of that. It is not a war that you can claim that you have won once and you will win tomorrow. You may have won yesterday because you were strong, because you were aware, because you were awake, but there's no guarantee of what will happen tomorrow. So it is a war that one always has to be constantly on the guard. How does one prepare himself for this war? Perhaps we can say with the following three ideas. One, you have to have a strategy. You have to have a plan, a tochnit. You have to have the right ammunition. And number three, you have to have the will, the desire to fight. You have to have the courage to wage war. These are basically the three things that one has to have, and this is how he approaches the battle. What kind of tochnit, what kind of strategy, what kind of plan are we talking about? For the Jew, we're talking about a very healthy daily routine. From the moment he wakes up and he says, Modani lefanecha, and he washes his hands, and he says, Berachot, he puts on tefillin, he puts on tzitzit, and he prays to Hashem 3 times a day, and he learns Torah. All of this is a very healthy schedule, and this schedule alone is very powerful enough, is very powerful to keep him out of trouble. It's not a guarantee, it may not be sufficient, but it's pretty powerful to have a healthy schedule, to be occupied, to be doing good things, and hopefully that will give him some strength to fight off the Yetzer Hara. That's a plan, that's a strategy. You keep to this strategy, you do things that you're supposed to be doing, hopefully you'll stay out of trouble. Number 2, you have to have some strong ammunition. The rabbis tell us that the most powerful ammunition is Torah. One who regularly sits and learns Torah, the Torah has the power to weaken that Yetzer. It is considered an antidote. It is a very powerful remedy. Very simple. There are other ideas, there are other suggestions on how to weaken the Yetzer, but this is the most powerful one. And then you need the courage, the strength, the desire, the will. The reason for that is because there are many temptations in life, there are many challenges and hardships that people have, depending on what their weakness is, what their Yetzarim are. It may be very difficult indeed. Nobody ever said it was easy. And because it's difficult, one may give up, one may think it's not worth it, it's a losing battle, he may think that. So one needs to be courageous, one has to be convinced that he can win the war, one has to have the desire to fight. And one way to get this desire and this courage is to look back at our forefathers and how much their mesirut nefesh, their will and the desire to sacrifice was so strong. They were willing to give their lives for Shabbat, for staying Jewish. Looking back, we can see how much they fought for themselves and for their children, and perhaps that can help us, that can inspire us in wanting to be just like them, in willing to fight and never give up. Because giving up happens to many people who see that it's not easy. So one has to be courageous. One should perhaps look back at his parents or grandparents and perhaps get inspired from them. All of these are necessary. This is how we approach the battle. But how can we guarantee success? That's another story. You may have the right tools, but will you succeed or not? The Torah Kedusha in Parashat Tetze gives us some instructions. In the very first words of the first pasuk, even though you may translate it literally as going out to war, There's some remazim. As we've spoken in the past, the Torah Kedusha has various layers. You have the Peshat, the Drash, the Remez, the Sod, various layers, various pieces of information that are insinuated in every single letter and every single word. Ki Tetze milchama, instruction number 1 is, if you want to win against the Yetzer Hara, you want to defeat him, you have to be on the offensive, not on the defensive. Ki Tetze, you initiate the war. Milchemet Sheshet Hayamim, the 6-day war, for those of you who recall, was such a war. We went out on the offensive. We didn't wait for them to attack us. You're much more powerful if you go on the offensive than if you have to defend yourself now. You're unprepared. All of a sudden you're being attacked, like Milchemet Yom Kippurim. Therefore, Milchama of the Yetzer, we initiate, we do things, actively do things that will thwart the plans of the Yetzer Hara, frustrate his ideas. Tebalbeloto, confuse him. You begin the war. You do things that are known to help in this war, and you initiate them. That's number 1. Number 2, for those of you who heard the recording of President Roosevelt's declaration of war against Japan, he called Congress together, and he declared war. What for? What do you have to declare war for? Just go to war. Just send the army. Why do you have to go through the formality of calling everybody together in the government, right? And giving a speech and saying, we're going to war. The declaration of war is important in order for everybody to remember who the enemy is, to ingrain it in their mind. These individuals are our enemy, and this is the reason why we're going to fight them. In order to ingrain in them, in order for them not to have any doubts of the importance of this war, we declare it, we announce it, we formalize it, we speak about it. Milchemet HaYetzer is something that one has to be constantly aware of. Yes, it's always there. You have to announce it. In other words, you have to be aware of it. You have to recognize your enemy. So the rabbis continuously remind us about that. They declare it for us. You are constantly having a battle with the Yetzer Hara and his cohort. There's a declaration of war, a constant war with them. And one has to be continuously aware, he's not your friend, he's your foe. And remember that, he's your enemy. He's going to try to get you. So that awareness is very important. Number 3, the Torah tells us, V'shavita shivyo. You've taken him prisoner, keep him a prisoner. Don't let him go. What did we just say before? You won yesterday. Who says you're going to win tomorrow? Don't let him go out. He's going to come back and get you. You know, some of the criminals they let out of jail, okay, they become better people. Many of them commit crimes again. And sometimes even more serious crimes. So serious that we regret letting them go. Well, how do we know? They said that they're going to behave themselves. But they have Yitzarim. Criminals, everybody. We all have Yitzarim. V'shavita shivyo, you won, you defeated him. Maintain him in prison. Don't let him loose. If we do so, if we do everything as we are instructed, what does the rest of the pasuk says? Untano Hashem Elokecha biyadecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will hand him over to you. In other words, you will be in full control. If you do everything as instructed, you will win. That's number 1. Number 2, Untano Hashem Elokecha biyadecha, according to the Kabbalah, what that means is that at some point, an individual has defeated his Yetzer so many times in a particular area, even the Yetzer Hara makes peace with him. He says, you know what, I'm not going to bother you anymore. You're too hard of a case for me. Untano Hashem Elokecha beyadecha, he lets go of you. After a while. I don't know how many individuals can claim that, because the Yetzer is after just about everyone. But at some point, he's entirely in your hands. The Torah is reminding us that this is a real war, a war that sometimes we will win and sometimes we will lose. And even if we lost, you shouldn't give up. Because remember, you won sometimes, and that's very important. Since this is a difficult war, just remember that tzaddikim can also fall. The righteous and the learned may also make mistakes. Don't be surprised if you see somebody with a long beard who's very observant making a terrible mistake. Whether it was a small avera or a big avera, makes no difference. You know, everybody has their weaknesses. So don't be shocked. You know, people have come over to me, non-religious Jews. How do you explain this? They show me a big picture in the newspaper. And of course the newspaper, especially the secular newspapers, try to make that the headlines. A rabbi was caught. How do you explain this? And I tell them, what do you think? Rabbis don't have a Yetzer Hara? We're not angels. Just because he dresses in a particular way and he has a long beard and he's very learned, doesn't not mean he has no Yetzer Hara. He can just as easily fall prey to the Yetzer just like anybody else. And unfortunately, it could happen. So the Torah tells us this.
Don't be surprised. It can happen. It can happen to the best of us. It's a very difficult war. However, don't forget that even though it's a difficult war, everybody has been given the potential to fight this war and to win this war. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not give any individual a challenge which is too difficult for him to cope with. You have been given a challenge, you can deal with it. You have the strength, you have the know-how. Somehow you can win the war if you want to, if you choose to. Hashem has given us the potential. The question is, do we use it? Do we maximize it? Do we have that will to fight? Hashem will give the strength and will give actual assistance to those who really, really want to fight the Yetzer Hara. Those who want to become clean, they will receive assistance from heaven. Those who truly pray for assistance will get it. I like to tell the story of the Netziv, a great rabbi who lived about 100 years ago, who as a child had not too much interest in learning. He was not so bright. He didn't do well. And as he was getting older, bar mitzvah age, and becoming a teenager perhaps, I forget at what stage, the teacher had a meeting with his parents. They thought he was sleeping, but he was not. He overheard the whole conversation. The teacher tells the parents, maybe it's a waste of time for him to learn in the cheder. Let him learn a profession. Let him become an apprentice. You know what apprentice is? Imagine a carpenter when somebody wants to become a carpenter, he goes to another carpenter to learn by him. He's called an apprentice, like a student. Let him learn a trade, a profession. Let him make good use of his time. Haval, he's not doing well. This is not for him. And they were going to get ready the next morning to discuss that with their son. But he overheard the conversation. As soon as the rabbi left, he went crying over to his parents and he said, I want to learn. I don't want to become a carpenter or a shoemaker. This is my dream, is to learn. I want to sit and learn. I want to become a Talmid Chacham. Give me a chance and I will prove it to you. I'll try my best. What can I do? And he wasn't too bright. He was a good child, but he just couldn't absorb all the learning. And perhaps, it was just more difficult for him to grasp all the ideas of the Gemara, the Chumash. He was slower, as we would call it today. And they said, fine, we'll give you a chance. But just remember, if it doesn't work out, you're going to the shop to become a carpenter. That night, he cried his heart out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he prayed. He asked Hashem to help him. That's all he wants, is to learn Torah. And sure enough, after that night, his head opened up. In other words, he was able, from that moment on, to grasp the more difficult concepts. And slowly but surely, he began to learn well, to do well, and he succeeded in his learning so much so that he eventually, when he got older, even became a very big rabbi and published some very, very important works on the Torah. In the introduction to one of those very famous works on the Chumash, he writes, just imagine had I not cried my heart out, had I not prayed to Hashem, and after 120 I would have departed from this world, and I would have gone to Betin Shel Mala, to the heavenly court, and there they would show me a book, and I would ask him, what book is this? And they would tell me, this is your book. And I would say, what? What are you talking about? I never wrote a book. I was a carpenter all my life. And they would tell me, yes, but this is the book you could have written had you just worked a little harder, had you just prayed, had you made more of an effort. And Baruch Hashem, he was grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for having opened up his mind to be able to absorb all that learning and to grow in Torah. Many of us have tremendous potential. We don't even realize it. We give up too quickly. This milchama, milchemet hayetzer, the milchama that we're fighting against the evil inclination, is tied to another war, which you will find the end of Parashat Tetze, the milchama of Amalek. The two are very similar. When does Amalek control us? When we do not want to carry the yoke of heaven. As Yitzhak told Esav, there will come a time if Yaakov will let go of the Ol HaTorah and you will be in control, you will be able to release yourself from his burden. What do we mean by prikat ol? What do we mean by removing a burden? When does a Jew remove the burden of Torah mitzvot? Either shel mityaesh, when he gives up hope. Giving up hope in battle means to raise your hands. I don't want to fight anymore. Hashem says, you don't want to fight anymore against your Yetzer Hara? Well, you're going to end up fighting someone else. I'm going to send you Amalek. When we do not want to fight the Yetzer Hara, when we do not want to follow the Torah mitzvot, when we don't want to have this ol, Hashem says, I'm going to give you another ol. I'm going to give you another source of trouble. I'm going to give you another war, the war of Amalek. The war of Amalek, therefore, comes to Am Yisrael when we don't want to fight the war we should be fighting. That is Milchemet HaYetzer. Anybody know when the Yetzer Hara goes crazy? Matai hu mishtolel, when it becomes very, very difficult for one to control his desires? At what point in his life, or at what situation or what circumstances is the Yetzer Hara the most difficult one to control? Umishtolel. In other words, so he's like a wild animal. Anybody know at what point or what the circumstances have to be that the Yetzer Hara is very, very powerful and hard to control? During the time that one is a soldier at war. Look at any war in history, whether it was in Yugoslavia, or whether it was in Africa, or whether it was in Europe. What did soldiers do at time of war? Huh? They steal, they rape, they kill. No, besides killing, right? Everything is let loose. Yeah, everything is let loose. That is the time when the Yetzer Hara achi harbe mishtolel. That's when he runs wild. What do we do then? Who would go to war in the Jewish army? Only tzaddikim, the best people. We don't want to lose them, right? We want to send the best people who do only mitzvot and no averot. We want them to come back alive. Tzaddikim can also, what did we say before? Can also weaken. And especially at war, you let them loose, they're human beings. So what are we going to do now? We don't have a seder. At war, you're going to pray, you have to go to war. You have shiurei Torah. How are you going to protect yourself at war? Remember, the Yetzer Hara is running wild. That is where the Torah gives us a very, very unique parasha, a very unique chapter that many people have a hard time understanding. How the Torah can allow something called Yifat Toar. Shlomo HaMelech tells us in Mishlei, the Yetzer Hara is very powerful. Therefore, at times, in order for you to defeat him, you may have to use trickery to defeat him. Tahbulot. The Torah Kedosha in Parashat Tetze gives us its tahbula. Hashem is giving us a tahbula on how to overcome this Yetzer in the most difficult time, the time of war. It allows the Jew to have a Yifat Toar. Very, very hard to understand. What's a Yifat Toar? A Jew sees during the time of war a non-Jewish woman who he likes. She's beautiful. He's attracted to her. He's allowed to go and take her for himself and be with her on condition that he after that takes her into his house and she has to go through a whole procedure of making herself look ugly, letting her nails grow and so forth. As long as he does all that, he can hold on to her. He most likely will not hold on to her too long, as is predicted. But this whole idea of allowing a Jew to be with a non-Jewish woman, even temporarily, is incredible, because we know it's asur. It's especially asur to marry a non-Jew. To be with one is simple prostitution, or whatever else you want to call it. The Torah allows that on a one-time basis. How could it be? Again, it's something that is very difficult to understand unless you look into it a little bit more. What was the kavanah here? What is the Torah trying to accomplish here? So what did I say before? It is the most difficult time to control the Yetzer, and the Torah Kedosha finds us a way how to control it in a kosher way, through trickery, by allowing that through the back door, taking what you should not be taking ordinarily, but taking it in a way that the Torah allows you to take her, on various conditions, that you bring her into the house. And then eventually, after a certain point, she converts, and if you want to stay married, you marry her, and you stay married. This whole idea of Yifat Toar is to defeat the Yetzer. That's all it is. Because if you would not allow something like that, then the righteous people who are going to war may fall be'isur. What do we say before? Again, this is the most difficult time. And you can't say asur, 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 asur. Of course, you could say it, but it's very, very difficult, the Torah knowing human nature, very difficult to hold people back from falling at time of war, from doing something that they shouldn't ordinarily be doing. Torah Kedosha finds a tahbula. This is a real tahbula that's kosher for those who needed it only. It doesn't mean you should do it. It means if you need it, this is the way you do it. The Torah gives us instructions on how to do it, and you have to follow the instructions. You can't just say, okay, it's mutar, and forget about it. No. Bring her into the house, let her go through these procedures where she becomes very ugly. In other words, where she does not become as attractive anymore. Maybe I should read to you just a few of the pesukim. She has to shave her hair. let her nails grow. She should take off her more beautiful decorative clothing that she wore at the time of war. And she should cry and mourn for her parents for a month. Basically, you are told to make her look not too appealing, not too attractive, so you should be able to judge, is this what you really want? All of this to quiet down the Yetzer. The being with her and then undoing her beauty, seeing what she really is, in order to make us understand, wait a minute, what am I doing here? So we have quieted the Yetzer by allowing her to come in to the house, which is Asur, in other words, to be with her intimately. And then we've gone a step further, made her mechu'eret, in other words, made her look ugly, not as attractive. To again, control the Yetzer, bring us back to our senses, and eventually, hopefully, and most likely, get rid of her and send her off. Yeah.
However, the Bible factors, okay, if a man wants to take her, you said he's allowed, she has to convert. We don't want those kind of converts.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's not ideal because we don't want those converts that it's by force. Right. But it's allowed. It is allowed. So but again, it will not succeed. It will not work out. In the end, either you will let go, not you, but the individual will let go of it, or somehow it will not be a very successful relationship. That whole idea was tahvula for the Yetzirah. So we should not do something be'isur. HaTorah hershalanu b'derech muteret, in a way which is mutar, in order to defeat the Yetzirah. Kach et ze b'tnaim ka'ele. Take it as long as you fulfill these conditions. If you do this properly, you will quiet your Yetzer, and it will not be any sur. Okay?
Everybody has sometimes can smoke, outside.
Right.
You can use the
No.
Even not this one. Sometimes you're...
Yeah, but Yefat Toar is only mutar bizman milchama, only during the time of war. We said, not now. You go out to the street, Yefat Toar, right? You can't.
No, not talking about the people use it.
Yeah.
Problem.
There are tahmulot. That's what Shlomo Melech says. But tahmulot taseh lecha milchama. You have to use trickery, but nothing. You can't use something which is asur. This is the only one that the Torah gave that usually is asur, but bizman milchama is mutar. If you follow those procedures, if you comply with those conditions. Yes. That's right. Unless he's doing a mitzvah min Torah, unless he's doing it according to the Torah. This is one exception where the Torah allows it on condition that you do it according to these procedures. That is perfectly fine. The Torah gave us this tahvula for purpose of fighting the Yetzer in the most difficult time, the time of a milchama. Difficult to understand, but we have to try to reason what is the ultimate result of this. To quiet the Yetzer, to defeat the Yetzer, and eventually to remove her. Because she's not really welcome. This is not a true convert, like you said. Now what happens if nevertheless he does marry her? The children that will come out of this union will be ben sorer umoreh, rebellious children. No, not mamzerim. They will be fine, kosher children, but rebellious because the marriage here, the union here was because of ta'ava, desire, not l'shem shamayim. And a union that comes about as a result of ta'avot, desire, not only does it not succeed because after a certain age he won't be attracted to her anymore, but the children will not be good children. The same is true with what the rabbis tell us, Hanosei Isha l'shem mamon. Whoever marries a woman because of her money, he will not have children agunim, good children. Just married her for the money, that's not l'shem shamayim. No guarantee that the children that will come out of that union will be good children. In Parashat Tetze, we see many mitzvot that are intended, the common denominator between them is to instill in us, to imbue in us midat harachamim. Just quickly going to give you a few examples. Lo tachrosh shor v'chamor, not to allow a ox and a donkey to plow together, because they can't work together, and it's not right, and it's not fair to do something like that. Shiluach haken, the mitzvah of sending up the mother bird when you're taking the cheeks. You have to first send her off so she does not see you taking the cheeks. The tabetzim, or the aprochim. Even though that's not the reason for the mitzvah of Shiluach HaKen, I did not discuss the reason for that mitzvah. All I said is that the mother has to be sent up first, so she should not see as we take the cheeks. There is an isur of ribit, the prohibition of not charging interest on certain loans. There is the prohibition of being careful with not giving too many lashes to one who deserves lashes, because he might become embarrassed. There is the prohibition of lo tachsom shor bedisho, if an ox is plowing the land, not to muzzle him, to allow him to eat as he's working the land. There is a mitzvah of helping another Jew's animal that is overloaded with its load. And there's a mitzvah of yibum, a woman whose husband passed away and there were no children, where the brother of the deceased is told to marry. He has a mitzvah to marry his sister-in-law and to have children on his brother's name. All these are just examples of mitzvot that, even though they all have their own unique reason, the purpose for it, but they instill in us rahamim. Many, many mitzvot, if we perform them, they instill in us rahamim. And this is a very important idea that is expressed in Parashat Tetze. Especially, I want to talk about another midah that is emphasized, and that's the midah of hakarat tov. Hakarat tov means being grateful. We're told to be grateful to the Egyptians. What? The Egyptians enslaved us. They tortured us. No, if they want to marry after 3 years, country. We lived in Egypt. You have to recognize that. You have to acknowledge that. You have to be thankful for that. Hakarat tov. Whereas we're told the males of Ammon and Moab are not welcome into Judaism. Even if they convert after 10 generations, we don't accept them. Why not? They did not offer you bread and water when we were on our way. Even though Lot is their great-great-great-grandfather, and he was helped by Abraham Avinu, they were ungrateful. They were ungrateful? We don't want this kind of people amongst the Jewish nation. Being grateful is very, very important. As the rabbis tell us, a well that you drank water from, don't throw mud into it. You benefited from someone, from something, don't mistreat it. Don't be a kfui tova, don't be ungrateful. And definitely, al teshalem ra'at tachat tova, which is even worse, to do something bad instead of doing something good. It's bad enough when somebody is ungrateful, but to harm or to do something bad to an individual who was good to him. Torah therefore puts an emphasis on these midot. Who is welcome into our nation, who is not welcome. This is what we want to teach. This is what we want to imbue in our children. This is what we want the genes to contain. As the rabbis tell us, you can recognize a Jew by shanim rachmanim gomlei chasadim. We're compassionate, we are bashful, and we're kind-hearted. In many cultures, you may have heard the expression, mind your own business, right? Many cultures, many languages use that term. In Judaism, it's just the opposite. The Torah Kedosha has an emphasis on taking an interest in another Jew. As long as it's a sincere interest because you want to help him. You're not just nosy, like some people are. If you have a sincere interest and you want to know how someone is doing, that is the correct thing to do. That is the attitude we should have. To take interest in how someone is doing. All of this is called chesed. Now there's no specific mitzvah for doing chesed, but examples of chesed can be Nichum Avelim, comforting those who are mourning, Bikur Cholim, visiting those who are sick, Alvayat Hamet, attending a funeral. All of these are examples of chesed. There's no one mitzvah to do chesed, but there are many examples of chesed. There is one example of this week's parasha that is a very important example of chesed, and that is Hashavat Avedah, returning something that is lost that you know belongs to a Jew, or chances are that it belongs to a Jew. You're showing that you're considerate, you take your time, you make an effort to return a lost item. Now, in thinking about this mitzvah, I once asked, but wait a minute, let's try to figure out for a moment, why did this individual who lost the item, why did he lose it? What kind of a punishment is it? We know nothing is for nothing. What kind of a punishment is it when somebody loses his watch? You left your watch at some restaurant and you have to go back 25 miles to fetch it, if it's still there. People have lost jewelry in Disneyland and they have to go to Lost and Found if they find it. People have forgotten jewelry in the bathroom of the airplane. People have lost it in the toilet. Then it's lost forever. People have left it on the seat and it was taken from them, by someone who just snatched it away. Why does somebody lose something? You call it kapara, but for what avon? Tikkun, but for what? What's the tikkun for what? Right, but what is that something that you did wrong?
Maybe if you didn't return an object to someone else.
No, that's too simple.
The second you lost it, you stole it.
Yeah. Now, it could be midah keneged midah. Yeah, that's possible. The word avedah is composed of 3 letters in the shoresh. Aleph, Bet, Dalet. Each letter in the Aleph, Bet, which I've given a whole lecture about, represents something. But Aleph, Bet, Dalet, are those letters consecutive? What's missing? The letter Gimel is missing. You know what the letter Gimel stands for? Gomel Hasadim. Dalet comes right after Gimel.
Gomel dalim. We're supposed to be kind to those who are poor and destitute. Gimel is therefore before the Dalet. They go together. Gimel is supposed to be kind to Dalet, to the poor. Aleph bet Dalet. Where's the Gimel? Because you were not kind, perhaps, not kind enough to someone, you have to learn a lesson in kindness. You're going to lose something, somebody's going to find it, and he's going to show you what it means to be kind. He's going to bring it back to you. Just an idea I thought of. The Gimel is missing because maybe he was not kind enough, and he has to be told what kindness is. There was once an individual just like that. The Bet Halevi, great tzaddik who lived over 100 years ago, was once stopped by in an inn, and he disguised himself. He didn't let everybody know who he was. He was a great man. And the owner mistreated him, did not give him the proper kavod. He had to sleep on the floor in the cold, did not give him dinner. Very, very not nice to him. In the morning, when a whole group of Jews came with their rabbi, and that rabbi recognized, Bet Halevi, what are you doing on the floor? And as soon as the owner heard who this man is, he felt so sorry, and he begged for forgiveness. He says, I'm not forgiving you until you come and you be my guest in my house. So that's the only way I will forgive you. He went to his home, and in his home, the Bet Halevi gave him instruction on achnasat orchim, on chesed, and how you treat people. And then, of course, he forgave him. But I want you first to learn how to treat people. Perhaps, when an individual loses something, he needs to be taught a lesson on how to be kind to others by the individual who will find the lost object and show kindness to him. Yeah. Anyway, the one who finds it also has his own nisayon, his own challenge of returning it. And he has perhaps his own tikkun. He has to go out of his way and look for the man. So there is definitely some cheshbon over here. Now we talked about lost objects. There are many Jews who are lost, who haven't found their way. Imagine how great this mitzvah would be if we can bring them back to their roots. But it's the same idea. We have to go out of our way if we can do anything about it and show them the way. What's the opposite of being kind? Being unfair? Being corrupt? What? Being selfish? You will find in this week's parasha the prohibition of not having different measures. Lo yelecha even be'even. Two different kinds of stones, two different kinds of measuring stones, weights and measures. In other words, be careful, the Torah tells us, in being honest. The opposite of chesed is one who's not honest, who's, like you said, selfish, who's a crook, cheats people, thinks of himself. The Torah says, lo yelo. Lo yelo means, the commentaries tell us, or lo yelecha. Lo yelecha means that if you do so, in the end, that money that you cheated someone will not be yours. Anything that was taken without tzedek, any money which is not kosher, does not have any beracha. You took it dishonestly, it will not remain with you. As opposed to one who is yashar, yelo, the Torah says. If one is honest, does business honestly, he will always have. Hashem will reward him. People think that they make some money by overcharging, by taking more than they should have. They're going to get richer. No, on the contrary. That money that was earned dishonestly will eventually disappear. Another very important point in this week's parasha, towards the end of Tetze, speaking about the Milchama of Amalek, the Torah uses the term Vata ayef biyagea, and you are tired. What is the meaning of you are tired? One idea perhaps is as follows. A Jew has to be very, very careful. We're speaking about the Milchama of the Yetzer Hara. One has to be very careful in the avodah of Hashem, when one is serving Hashem, to never express himself. To be a Jew is difficult. I'm so tired. I've done so much. I've stayed up so long. I've gotten up so early. Be very careful for not expressing yourself that you are tired. Whoever does so, whoever says, Vani ayef v'yagea siman shebelo yareh Elohim. That's the continuation of the pasuk. That means that he's not God-fearing. Vata ayef v'yagea? How could you say that? Siman shebelo yareh Elohim. That you're not God-fearing. Now this is very, very dangerous, and I'll tell you why. There's a connection between the end of Parashat Tetze and the beginning of Parashat Tavo. Now we're going over to Parashat Tavo. How does Parashat Tavo begin? Ve'aya. Ve'aya is a lashon of simcha. Ve'aya is something in the future. It shows optimism. Ve'aya. Lo vayehi, it was. Ve'aya, and it will be. Lashon shel simcha. It shows optimism. Optimism is the opposite of despair, of yush. And that is the connection between the end of Parashat Tetze and Ve'aya. In the end of Parashat Tetze, we have somebody who's giving up, who's tired, and here we have Ve'aya, someone who's happy, who has the right attitude. He's optimistic. He doesn't give up hope. That's the opposite of the midah of Amalek. Amalek tends to cool a Jew off, to make him lose hope, to give up. Whenever a person becomes tired and he gives up hope, anything that he's been carrying becomes a real ol. a real burden. Now, why do people give up hope? Why do people become tired? Because of a lack of simcha. Because they're not happy. There's no happiness in their life. Why isn't there a happiness? There's no happiness because people always want what they want. Instead of focusing, wait a minute, what does Hashem want? A person thinks that he should have something. If he doesn't have it, he looks for change. And if he would to think for a moment, wait a minute, maybe this is what Hashem wants me to have. No, I'd like to have this. I don't have it, I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. People are always thinking what they would like to have. And if they're not happy with what they have, they look for change. That's why you will find in Parashat Tavo a very, very powerful statement the Torah makes. Tachat asher lo avadta et Hashem Elokecha b'simcha u'b'tuv levav mirov kol. Kadosh Baruch Hu will be very, very upset at us if we do not serve Hashem with simcha, with happiness, especially mirov kol, when we have the money, when we are living on a high standard of living. And what happens if you don't? Ve'avadta toyevecha. You will serve your enemy. You don't want to serve me with happiness? In the end, what did we say before? You don't want to fight the milchemet of yetzer, you will fight the milchama of Amalek. You don't want to serve me, then you will serve your enemy. And all of this for a lack of happiness. When a person is not happy, the commentaries explain, he will become negligent with the mitzvot, which leads eventually to prikat ol, that he will not want to have a burden. The yoke of heaven, the yoke of the mitzvot. Because he's not happy. He's not happy, he doesn't care so much. Doesn't care, then there may come a time that he will stop doing it altogether. And the same is true when it comes to a different kind of connection, the connection between a husband and wife. If the connection of a husband and wife is very dull and dry, and there's no happiness, that connection becomes a burden on the two of them, or on one of them. And what do you do when you have a burden? You want to let go of it, and that's why they get divorced. It's a burden. I don't want to live with him. I don't want to live with her. Right? They're not happy. They're not happy. It becomes a burden. When you have a burden, you want to let go of it. The opposite is true between two very close friends, or between a husband and wife. If the connection is very, very good, very, very strong, there are no burdens, there are no difficulties, there are no problems. I'll do anything for you. Did you ever hear that expression? A lot of people say, I'll do anything for you, but they don't really mean it. To be able to sacrifice for another individual, you really have to care about them a lot, a lot, a lot. Very, very much. There has to be a very strong connection. Because then nothing is a burden. If you're not happy with someone, then the whole relationship can become a burden, and at some point one may want to let go of this burden. Let's go on, because I want to just finish up a few more points and then we'll take the question. When a person is not happy, he should ask himself, well, wait a minute. I shouldn't think about just myself, what I want, because that's why I'm not happy. What is it that my spouse wants? That should be important too. What is it that Hashem wants? That is ultimately what we should be focusing on. If we only focus on what we want, and we don't have what we want, we won't be too happy. As a result of that, perhaps that is one of the reasons Hashem gave us the mitzvah of tefillin. What is the mitzvah of tefillin for? So the commentators explain the sha'abed et kol hachushim, that we should take all the five senses, the four in the head and the one in the hand, and tie it, connect ourselves only with Hashem. In other words, all our senses we dedicate to the service of Hashem. Dedicate all that we have, all that we do for Hashem. That is the tachlit. Ultimately, that is the purpose of life. That is why we're here for. We're not here for ourselves to have a good time. We need to therefore l'shabed, to take all our senses, and remember that that's the ikar, to take all the senses and devote them to the service of Hashem. Another idea that can perhaps help us in focusing, actually not focusing, but on becoming happier with ourselves, is by making others happy. One who makes others happy, HaKadosh Baruch Hu midah keneged midah, will reward him and will make him happy too. You're not happy? Make others happy. Eventually you will be happy too. Another important idea that is also seen in this week's parasha is a reason why people are not so happy, because they are dividing themselves so much and they have many, many interests. And many of those interests are hevel havalim, nonsense, shtuyot. The Chozeh Melublin calls them motarot. Motarot means excesses. People are so in love with certain excesses, materialism, and they take away some of his love, some of that focus that he should have in Ahavat Hashem. So he's splitting himself. He's splitting himself in trying to become happy with a new car, in trying to become happy with new furniture. All of that to make him happy. So his happiness is being split, and therefore he cannot truly be happy with what he should be happy, and that is with his kesher, with his connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with the mitzvot. Because he's being pulled in different directions. That is partially the remez in the words ve'avatai et oyevecha, and you will serve your enemy. Who is that enemy? Your motarot, your excesses. All the tavot that a person has, all the desires that he has, they are, in a sense, an enemy, because they are pulling. They all want their attention. You can't be happy with everything. We need to focus our happiness with what's really important. And in order to be able to do that, we have to know what is our priority. In the tefillah, we ask, V'davek libenu b'mitzvotecha. Kadosh Baruch Hu, we want to really be attached to you. We want to be attached to your mitzvot. Question, how do we do that? How do we accomplish that? What's the continuation? V'yached levavenu le'ahava u'lirat shemecha. Make us unite our love and our attention only on you. To love only you. So that we should not want to split ourselves in other directions. If you want to be davek with someone, you have to focus on that individual. You want to be davek in the mitzvot, you have to focus on the mitzvot. What may happen, unfortunately, is because we are turned off many times by all sorts of interests that we have in life, we're turned away from what we should be doing, we forget our tachlit, where we should be focused. Because that can happen, we need to try to understand what it is that we need to do to come back to where we were before. What do I mean by that? It is possible that a person at one time was very excited, and at some point he loses it. So we need to figure out what do we need to do to get back to where we were before. What has happened to somebody who lost his excitement? He has lost, another word for the excitement perhaps is he's lost his sensitivity. He no longer thinks of whatever used to excite him as something important. And that is why he's no longer excited about it. He's lost the sensitivity for it. Let me give you 3 quick examples of things that people may not be so excited about. 1, about their spouse after 35 years. Maybe, it could happen. Number 2, about Eretz Israel. They don't care about visiting. They have no interest. They've lost their excitement about Eretz Israel. Chaz v'shalom. And number 3, the mitzvot. People may not do it. And once upon a time they used to do it. So how do we get that excitement back? First of all, we have to consider it a priority. Eretz Israel is a priority to Am Israel. A spouse should be a priority. Mitzvot should be a priority. One has to treat them as priorities. And the commentaries explain, I've seen one commentary bring down, that as long as there's a spark left in the Jew, you can bring him back to feel what he used to feel. That spark can become a flame once again. The Magid of Dubna once met up with some scoundrels, some rascals, troublemakers, and they told him, Rabbi, let's see if you can convince us. We have a heart of stone. Let's give us a real powerful drasha, musab. Let's see if you can impress us. We are made out of stone. Let's see if you can do it. He says, I can't do it. No. What is this compared to? There was once an individual who came from the village to the big city, and he saw an incredible invention. He saw bellows, to make fire. He says, great, this is how you make fire. I'm going to buy one and take mine to the village. Instead of working so hard to make a fire, I'm just going to buy the bellows. He brings the bellows to his village, and he says, I just discovered this. This makes fire. Here, let's make some fire. And he sees no fire coming out of the bellows. It's blowing air. No fire. He went back and wanted to return it. Give me back my money. It's defective. What do you mean defective? And he tells him exactly what he did. No fire came out. He says, you silly man. In order to have a fire, you first have to have a spark. If you first have a spark, then you blow and the spark becomes a big fire. You don't have a spark, you're never going to have a fire. He turns to these troublemakers and he tells them, you guys have no spark. I can't help you. You're so dry. He was trying to, teach them a lesson. With individuals like this, I'm not even going to try. But for the most part, most Jews still have a spark. And you'd be surprised. That spark may be very small and hiding, but if you try hard enough, you blow and you blow and you blow, eventually you can bring him back. That spark can eventually become a big fire. In Parashat Tavo, you have many mitzvot like Trumot and Maasrot in order to awaken in us ahava for Am Israel. There should be ahdut and ahava and sympathy, that we should want to help each other. As the Sefer HaChinuch says, Achrei ha'pe'ulot nimshachot halevavot. Hearts are affected by what actions they take. The Torah wants us to take certain actions, to perform certain mitzvot, as we said early on, in order to instill in us rachamim, to instill in us the importance of chesed, that we should want to help those who need our help. I want to finish with the last idea in Parashat Tavo. In the very beginning of Parashat Tavo, the Torah discusses mitzvah bikurim, And there's a very interesting connection between the mitzvah of Bikurim and coming to Eretz Israel. What is the connection of Bikurim and coming to Eretz Israel? The Midrash says Moshe had a big fight with the Malachim when he went to Shamayim. Malachim says the Torah should stay up here. It applies to us. Moshe says it applies to you. Mitzvot apply to human beings. It belongs down here. And in the end, Moshe convinces them that it belongs there. What was the whole discussion all about? The Malachim don't know this? The Malachim, of course, knew this. But what they meant was that ultimately the mitzvot are spiritual. And therefore, let the Torah remain here, where there's no Yetzer Hara, where everything that needs to be done will be taken care of in the spiritual world. Moshe says, yes, the mitzvot are spiritual, and they definitely accomplish a great deal in the upper worlds, but they first have to be down here. This is Hashem's will, that they be in the material, in the physical world. And through the physical world, eventually we will elevate these mitzvot to the upper worlds. Now, during the time Am Yisrael was in the Midbar, we had a more spiritual life. We had Mamin HaShamayim. Am Yisrael is about to come to Eretz Israel. They will have to toil the fields. They will have to work hard. They will go into business. They will live a very physical, material life, not as spiritual as before. And that's good, because the ultimate tachlit is to what? Is to take the physical and to elevate it and to sanctify it. Mitzvat Bikurim, therefore, is the culmination, the end of the physical, right before we elevate it. We're entering Eretz Israel. This is a time we're beginning to elevate that which is physical, that which is material. Bikurim, we've put so much effort in producing these fruit. By cultivating the land, the trees have grown, we've picked the fruit. Now the time has come to bring them to the Kohen and sanctify it. The ultimate goal in this world is to elevate that which is material. It's important to eat, it's important to get married. All these things are physical, material, but they can be elevated if you do them for the right purpose. That is why it's not enough what people say, I have a good heart. I'm Jewish, and I have a good heart. No, to really be Jewish, you have to perform mitzvot. The world depends on mitzvot. Mitzvot have to be performed. And what happens if the mitzvot will not be performed? That is the difficult part of Parashat Tavo. The kelalot come, the curses will come. What are curses? To awaken us, to eventually do the mitzvot. The mitzvot have to be performed. And as the Navi says, if you don't do it willingly, Hashem will force it upon us with terrible decrees, chas v'shalom. The mitzvot in the end have to be fulfilled. But since Am Yisrael is elevated above all the nations, just like the curse can chas v'shalom come about, the blessings will also come about if we follow the Torah mitzvot. Hashem does not only give Halila curses. Hashem will also follow through with blessings. Ki natan Hashem otanu elyon. Hashem has put us on top of everybody else. And His way of showing the world that we are on top, that we were chosen, is by blessings too. By having us blessed, if we deserve them. But the kelalot in the end is for our good. What will happen if we wouldn't have an intifada? What would happen if we wouldn't have wars? What would happen if we wouldn't have tzarot in Eretz Israel? The Am Yisrael would deteriorate more. They would become more and more secular. Hashem therefore uses Halila Gezerot, Kelalot, to bring us back. So we should not think for a moment that we want to be like everybody else. Ayale al ruchachem, don't think what you're thinking, that you will be like everybody else. I will not allow it. You will not be like everybody else. In the end, you will do it one way or another, you're going to stay Jewish. So in the end, all the kelalot are letova. All the kelalot are for the good. That is what the message Elyahu Navi received when he was fed by ravens. Ravens went to feed Elyahu Navi in the cave. Ravens? The raven is a cruel bird. Hashem is saying, yes. All the kelalot, don't think of them as being cruel. The ravens are feeding you. The kelalot, therefore, are rachamim, are in reality all mercy. They're all letova. Therefore, Elyahu Navi, don't be so makpid al Am Yisrael. Have pity on them too. Just like the kelalot are for the good, they are rachamim in the end. You too, don't be so strict with Am Yisrael. Don't speak negatively about them. If anything, be merachem on them. Have pity on them. This is the time of the year, Chodesh Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, and Yom Kippur, that not that we have to remind HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He's aware of it, but He wants to hear it from us. He wants to hear from us that we beg Him, Rachem Aleinu, Kerachem Aval Banim, have pity on us, just like a father has pity on his children. B'ezrat Hashem, I want to wish all of you that we should have a k'tiva v'chatima tova. There should be no gezerot ra'ot. There should be only yeshuot v'nechamot. Amen.